telling me that in 30, we're going to be looking at 2.4 million? Yes.
It always comes from the top. So you as a business owner, you're responsible, and you're rich, right? You're rich.
I've been rich way before I had money, brother. Like,
jeez.
I've been rich way.
That's a philosophical quote right there.
Yeah, like way before I had money.
For me, it's just doing, failing, and doing, and failing, and doing.
And just getting a little bit better every time.
That's it.
I love it. I love that.
People need to focus on going into 2024. Very important. Savings.
Yeah.
It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. He's probably the most technological advanced superhero.
He's probably not ready for it.
No, he's not ready for it.
He's just thinking that.
He's not ready for
He
it.
didn't watch the podcast.
When you come on Thursday, it's game one.
Because we all get to decide.
The business, the way to shoot the video.
Welcome, guys, to the Jazz Takhar podcast. We're live right now on Twitch, but you might be watching or listening on your favorite podcast platform. Do me a favor. Look, it doesn't cost you anything to be watching this or to listen to this. However, generally speaking, there's always a cost to something. And so what do I mean by that? Well, the cost for you to get this type of content is that I need you to share this with one friend, one family member, one colleague. Pick any one of those. Just share it. Why? Because I want to get this type of content of inspiration, motivation, wealth creation out to as many people as I possibly can. But that's only going to happen if you share it with more people. I'm joined by a couple of friends. I would call them even family to me. They've been around me for a very long time. The good-looking Ty here. And just before you go into the intro, my boy behind the ones and twos, Clyde, are we live on Twitch? Just want to make sure, because I don't see it on my platform, but if we're live, we're good to go. Awesome. So, Ty.
Hello, everyone.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you
good?
guys?
A lot of you would know Tyler, but if you're new to my community, Tyler's been with me for coming up to 11 years now?
It's almost a decade.
It's almost a decade. Sorry. Okay. Started out as an assistant.
You're server first.
Server first, actually downstairs at the Jackasters at my office. I knew the day that I met you that there was something different about you. I'm glad that we had that conversation, because now you lead the organization that is my real estate company, REC Canada, and what you lead is the division of making sure that our clients are speaking with a portfolio manager, and that's what you do. I'm going to go into that a little bit more later on. We got a bunch of stories and stuff that I want to cover, but I also want to get to the young phenom, Mr. Luke.
I'm trying to grow out the beard, so I don't look.
Nice try, bro.
It's looking good. It's looking good.
You think so, Ty?
It's looking good.
Not as good as these ones.
Well, look, if you're watching live right now, let us know what you think about the
They
guys
probably can't
here.
even see it.
Just zoom in on it. Zoom in on it.
Luke Lising, similar kind of path, not as a server, but started out as an assistant, now leads our pre-construction division here at REC Canada. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
You been good?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Part two.
I know, well, kind of part two, right? The last time you did this with Laura. I also noticed that Tyler and I have done so much content together, like from the real estate side at REC Canada with brunches and stuff like that, that I actually don't know if you've been on JTP before.
I haven't, no.
Maybe in the past couple, no?
I was on your late night with Jazz a few
Perfect.
times.
Nightcap with Jazz.
No,
Nightcap with Jazz. People might get some weird ideas thinking like
Late night with Jazz.
or something. Yes. So first time on JTP.
That's right. I'm excited.
Well, as you should be, because it's a new set.
Yeah.
Right? We're excited. You guys came in. You've obviously seen the content before, but what's your thoughts on the new changes and all that?
I love it. I love that we're live on Twitch right now.
Yeah.
As well, the set looks great.
Awesome.
The wall. This is my first time seeing the wall, so
like in person.
In person.
You ever seen it? Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
it's first
Awesome.
time in person.
Yeah. Look, I thought that it would be kind of cool if I got in front of, because I was always in front of that wall. For anybody who's looking at the wall that Tyler's talking about, you see a bunch of acronyms, which is known as our success table. I'll take the time at one point to kind of go over all of them when we get some time to do that. But I always in the previous set sat in front of it, but I was like, look, man, there's something about the sign.
Yeah, the sign's so cool.
I want to be in front of the sign.
Yeah.
It has my name on it. Like, I'm not trying to be egotistical around it. I just felt like it's a different type of set that I want to go into 2024. Looks like you have something to say, Luker.
I don't have anything to say.
You're just admiring
Yeah, I am.
the set.
The set. Specifically the set.
Or the
Nothing
guy's
else.
face on the set.
Yes, and the 3 cameras that
love
you're just
it.
gawking at.
I love it.
But
Okay.
there's light here too.
Well, no, it's just, you know what? We're really stepping it up for 2024. It's why we actually go live on Twitch. And so, look, in the next coming episodes, I really recommend, if you're watching the recording right now or listening while you're taking your dog for a walk, on the treadmill, driving, I appreciate it because at least you're getting the content to you. However, in the next coming episodes, I mean, we're going to be doing some really cool things for the people that are watching live. Like, obviously, myself and the crew, the media squad, we're still learning about, okay, like, how do we make sure that the audio is good on live, and how do we make sure that not only do we go have the capability of going live on Twitch, but we're going to be going live on Instagram. We're going to be going live on YouTube. There's a lot of moving parts. So I hope anybody who's been in the community for a while and everybody who's new, what you're going to realize is that I'm going to allow you to be part of the journey. Mm-hmm. You might be looking at us right now and saying, well, what the hell? You guys don't have all your stuff figured out. You're not perfect. You should have started when you had everything lined up. One of the acronyms, like literally behind Tyler and his cup, it says RFA. That stands for Ready, Fire, Aim. Instead of falling into paralysis by analysis, waiting for everything to be perfect, our thesis in business, in personal branding, in life is start pulling the trigger and you'll learn and adjust along the way. If I waited for things to be perfect, I don't know if I would have even had the 232, 33 episodes that we've done, let alone all the other stuff that we've been able to accomplish. Like, thoughts on that, guys? Because both of you have been part of this journey. Ty, you know, almost a decade. Luker, you're up to like 4 years now. Like, you've really noticed the amount of pulling of the trigger that we do, and really the amount of failures we've had.
Yeah, what did we actually talk about earlier in the room? About the CEO that was the most vulnerable, that had their stocks rise, right? So in a scenario like that, to us, we don't really care about what the outside market will think, because we know by just being as vulnerable as possible and just being ourselves, that's what's going to produce the most results. Because people have what you call a BS detector. Is that what you call it? What was that? What was the
bullshit detector?
Yeah.
The term though that you pulled up was actor.
No,
Actor
actor-observer bias.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a BS detector.
BS detector.
Yeah. So,
and also, you being authentic is the best way to work with the people you want to work with, anyways.
That's what I like. I like what you said there, Ty. Like, I think a lot of salespeople worry that if they showcase themselves not being perfect or polished or like everything being right, that there's going to be clients or prospects or customers, whatever you want to call them, that are not going to want to work with them. Yeah. And the truth is, they might not want to work with you. But what you said I love, right, is that your vibe will always attract your tribe. Yeah. So why wouldn't you want to work with the people? Like, you both were traditional real estate agents as well, and one of the jobs that we have to do as real estate agents when we're helping home buyers is drive around in a car with them for like weeks, months, like hours upon hours a day. Like, you know, people want to see 5 homes. In our city here, we're based out of Toronto. I mean, we got some traffic. Why am I saying this? And what am I talking about? Well, why wouldn't you want to drive around in the car with people that you actually enjoy their time? Right. 100%. Right? Like, how long were you driving around showing property side? And there was probably people that you were like, shit, I can't wait to get to, like, fuck, I can't wait to like just finish this. You know?
You do hear the most out there stories from clients when you're stuck in traffic with them, though. Like, there's so many stories that
but imagine you didn't even like having like if you didn't enjoy the time. That's my concern there. You know what I mean?
Turn on the radio.
Exactly, right?
Up a little bit louder.
Yeah.
So everybody who's watching on Twitch right now, I just wanted to make sure my stuff was working. I want to welcome you to the chat. Ask questions. We do our best to obviously answer them. But let's get into it, guys. I got a bunch of articles. Clyde, you have them as well. We'll do our best to try to bring them up live. I mean, and for everybody who is watching for the first time, we appreciate your patience as we kind of work through the technology and everything. So, look, couple of stories that I wanted to kind of bring up that I thought our viewers and listeners might want to, get our takes on. And look, you're going to have your opinions. I'm going to have my opinions. I'm going to go over kind of all of them, and then we'll start to pick out which ones we want to talk about. So the first story being cash for keys, offers on the rise in Toronto. That's something that real estate agents are talking about. Essentially, what the strategy there is that landlords, to get tenants out, need to sometimes use this strategy, which is called cash for keys. Underbidding on homes hits a 10-year high in Toronto, and here's where buyers offer the least in terms of areas. A wave of defaults has real estate lawyers urging pre-sale buyers to be cautious. I'm sure Luke's going to have some thoughts on this, and we all will, because we do approximately 100 pre-sales a year with our clients for the last decade. So that's something that we'll definitely speak about. Real estate prices have dropped in many Ontario markets since June. These are the communities, which I think is kind of cool. Like, we can showcase some of the areas that, if you have the stomach to invest, or you looking into buying, where you might be able to get a deal. Then we're going to kind of shift towards some entrepreneurial sales business stuff, 24 money-making business and side hustle ideas. We're all into the side hustle. I thought that would be something that would be kind of cool to get your guys' take on it. 6 positive impacts of AI, artificial intelligence, on digital marketing. And is it really time to take the plunge? 6 things to consider before going from employee to entrepreneur. Where you boys want to start?
Cash for keys. Start from the top.
All right, let's go to cash for keys. That is page 4, Clyde. Okay. What are cash for key offers? Bob Aaron, a very prominent Toronto real estate lawyer here in Ontario, has been quoted all over BNN, CTV News, some of the top real estate magazines for in our industry, as well as public facing. He talks about the fact that when a property has been under rent control regulations for decades, sometimes the landlords wants to sell a unit or raise rent beyond what the current tenant pays. So why don't we talk about that first? For investors watching out there right now, or wannabe investors in Ontario, so make sure that if you're somewhere else in the country, somewhere else on the continent, you look at your state and provincial rules. But here in Ontario, when a property has been built before November 2018, there is rental guidelines that apply, and the province comes out every single year, sometime right around late November, early December, with the new allowable increase that landlords can charge tenants. And so I actually, for 2024, do you know what it is, Tyler, off the top of your head?
So the max that it can be is 2.5%.
And is that for 2024?
That's in general.
Yeah.
2024, I had actually an REC Insider.
2.5.
Yeah, there you go.
So I just pulled it up right now.
It's
so
probably going to be that.
So the max that somebody can increase the rent on a property that was built before November 15th, 2018 is 2.5%.
Yeah.
Meaning anything after, if you closed on a property that was built after that date, you can actually increase the rent to whatever you'd like. I say whatever you'd like, with a caveat that at the end of the day, that really means market rent.
Yeah.
A tenant's not going to pay you, double what the market rent is, because that wouldn't make sense. Sometimes they pay a little bit more than market rent because there's just a lot of demand and not enough supply. But I want to get your takes on it.
Yeah.
In fact, you, Tyler, just have been increasing the rent.
Yeah.
But what this article is talking about is that if that landlord, that pre-existing before November 2018, if you're not able to get the tenant out to increase the rent, what they're offering them, the landlord offering the tenant, is cash up front to get the tenant out. Now, we've heard about this a lot. What's your guys' thoughts on it?
Well, first and foremost, maybe let's talk about why this is being a lot more prevalent right now. And one of the main factors is affordability. Right, the expenses, the overall holding cost of a real estate asset has increased, obviously with interest rates at this point increasing, but also another byproduct of the lack of buyers' presence is that rents are increasing in major markets across the world right now, incredibly, right? In the GTA, we're at double-digit growth in rent year over year. And you couple that with a low vacancy rate, the landlord who has a 1-bedroom apartment that has had the same tenant for 10 years might be paying, $1,200, let's call it, $1,300, and that same unit could be rented out as market value for 25, 24, and that's one of the main reasons, right?
And look, sometimes you also see that the landlord is actually now thinking of selling.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And so, contrary to what a lot of people think, that you have to, as a tenant, leave, the place when the landlord's selling. If they're on a lease agreement, the tenant doesn't need to go anywhere.
Yeah.
But by law, on the flip side, when the landlord's selling the property, they have to provide vacant possession to the new buyer. So that creates a problem. Luker, what's your thoughts on it?
So people might be asking, like, why is cash for keys a thing? Why do landlords have to give money to their tenants in order to evict them? The answer comes down to the policies that we have. So, for example, in order to evict a tenant that's not paying, it's going to take a minimum of 8 months to go through the landlord-tenant board process to evict that tenant. Now, what happens when that happens? Now, as a landlord, knowing that it's going to take me 8 months of me potentially not getting rent, and interest rates are as high as they are today, I might be bleeding on a condo or a house $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month with no rent coming in. Now, that's pretty much what most people make in a single month, $4 or $5 grand a month, whatever the average income is. Now, as a landlord, if I know I'm bleeding that much money every single month with no income coming in, what do I do now when it comes to selecting tenants?
Yeah.
I'm 10 times more picky. I want to make sure I'm picking someone with cash in the bank, who has a good credit score, who has a good income, who has been someone that's stable. Now, that creates a storm because now there's less people that can actually win these bidding wars from a rental perspective. So that's also what's increasing rents. And it ties back to some of the policies that we have in the landlord-tenant board process because it takes so long to evict these tenants. And I sometimes I make a joke. I say, if you want to start a new business, become a tenant. Because somewhere in the article I read here that it takes like some cash for keys can be as high as $25,000.
Yeah.
If you want to make a quick $25,000, just stop paying rent. Obviously, it's a joke. Obviously, it's a joke, but that's a lot of money.
Yeah, well,
that's
look,
a lot of money.
In some places, we're actually even seeing more than 25 grand, right? Like it's upwards as like 100 grand, where tenants are saying, because they know, and this is not like bashing tenants. I mean, if you watch any of my content from the past, like I'm all about trying to find ways of housing affordability, but let's not forget that a lot of these landlords are mom and pop landlords. They're not like the big corporations. There's a lot of them in terms of the big pension funds and that own properties, but there's a lot of like Tylers and Jazzes and Lukes and so many of our clients and so many other people that are outside of our family and friends, where it's one property they have. And in the example that you spoke about, Ty, like if market rent's $2,500, and even if it's $1,500 that tenant's paying, like the landlord's not going to be able to hold on to the property.
Yeah.
And so what do you think is actually going to happen if you start to pull out these mama pop investors?
Right.
Yeah.
You're actually going to affect the rent even more because there's going to be less supply on the market.
Well, and also who owns that inherent real estate asset, right? Like what we saw in Toronto in the 80s and 90s, even earlier, was more holding companies.
Yep.
Right? There were large institutional investors who owned these rental properties. And what has happened because of the switch in asset classes, the ability to actually, rent out your basement, but at the same time also buy high-rise condos, which wasn't really prevalent too much so in the 80s and 90s, was everyday investors were now have the ability to buy and to rent it out,
which brought more supply to the market.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, just to the tenants out there, because I know we get bashed on the TikToks and the YouTubes of the world, because we're real estate brokers, it sounds like, well, obviously you guys want more investors. No, we want it to be fair for as many people as possible. And I say as many people as possible because I think, being 42 years old, I've come to learn, like, you're never going to come up with a rule or a regulation that's going to work out for everyone. Yeah. But can we cast the biggest net possible to make it fair for as many people as possible. Does that make sense?
Like I personally, like I love the idea of having the rent control there. Like having a cap of what it is that you can raise it every single year, because then it helps control affordability a bit in this specific asset, in that specific condo.
But I liked what they did back in 2018, right? Like at least having the ability for investors to look at a different asset class like pre-construction and say, okay, look, at least if it was built, and it's not just pre-construction, like even if you add a new basement apartment after November 2018, you can still increase the rent. At least the investors have some options to look at, right? But where this is really prevalent is in majority of units when you're looking at the rental guidelines, and this cash for keys is like in the multiplexes. And so if anyone's thinking like, what the hell are those? You've driven past them 1,000 times. It's the buildings with 8 units, 10 units, 5 units, 15 units, the apartment buildings. Those are the guys and gals. Well, any apartment buildings, let me just rephrase. Apartment buildings are generally the pension plan group that will hold those type of properties. But when you're looking at buildings that have 5, 6, 7 units, those are still regular investors, right? And sometimes the only way to get a tenant out is through cash for keys, but now tenants know it, hence why they're asking for 50, 60, 70,000. Like they're generally asking for the year's rent.
That's crazy.
Because they have to enter into the current market.
So I understand that from the tenant's perspective as well. I think,
but that's a wild number.
But you see how crazy this is? It's like, I own this item, I own this product. I'm gonna take it from someone, not pay for it, and then expect you to pay me for taking your item.
Yeah. But when you say not pay for it, what do you mean by that? Sorry.
Because let's say, like we're in a studio, for example, and I wanted to be your tenant to rent out the studio. Yeah. And I took it, and I used it, and I lived in it for an entire year, and I didn't pay you.
Well, no, so that's a different thing. That's delinquency. I think. Like you're not, now you're like exactly in delinquency. You're not paying, you're in default. You're not
But isn't that what we're referring to right now?
No, not necessarily. Like the cash for keys is just like, it's with a tenant that's even paying, and they're not in default, but now the landlord is trying to get the tenant out because they're not paying market rent.
Oh, got it. So I
understand what I'm saying,
yes.
So what you're
saying, it could be though,
100%.
Right. Yeah. Typically, with the scenarios that I see, it's because they're not paying entirely.
Yeah, well, you know, like
that's from what I've been seeing.
Yeah, so what I've been hearing, like, and just reading on social, and some of our clients have been calling and asking as well, because they do have properties that were before that November 2018 time. I would say it's like 50-50 in all honesty. Like 50% of the time, the tenant's a great tenant.
Yeah.
But from thinking about it from the tenant's perspective, they're like, dude, we had an agreement at $2,000 a month. And I'm just using that as the number, right? $2,000 a month. And yes, I understand your costs have gone up, but I understand market rent is $2,500 right now, but we have an agreement. On the flip side, the investor's like, look, like property tax just went up in Toronto. It's going up by 10%. You know, that's a big number.
That actually changes the conversation. I was under the impression these guys are not paying.
No.
That was the audience we were thinking.
Yeah, no, that does happen. It's just that it's not always the case.
Right.
But from the investor's perspective, it just got announced yesterday, okay, that the mayor of Toronto is going to be increasing the property tax by 10%. On average,
over 10.
That's an extra $300 a month.
Yeah.
Like those are some
not
big
including
numbers, man.
for condos the increase this year specifically because of cost of everything. Maintenance fees going up.
Yeah.
Maintenance fees are going up, and then just cost of living as well. That's a tough one, man.
Okay, so let's go somewhere else now. Let's go into what's your guys' thoughts? How about we go into the article about the wave of defaults, because we were kind of talking defaults and stuff like that. The wave of defaults has real estate lawyers urging pre-sale buyers to be cautious. So page 11. Clyde, if you want to bring that up as well. So 2021, Sadeep Sahgal put down an $81,000 deposit on a yet-to-be-built townhome in Surrey, BC. While it was under construction, he occasionally visited the site to watch it grow. The 52-year-old envisioned the deal, taking him steps closer to owning his first Canadian home. Making matters worse, so here it is. this is because I remember why I wanted to speak about this, he was relying on selling his home in New Delhi to get financing to close the deal. He began to worry when new regulations in India made his property less desirable. So he had a problem, obviously, selling the property in India. Floods hit it and selling became impossible. Making matters worse, when he tried to find a buyer to take over the Canadian deal so he could get a refund, the developers opted to keep his deposit and sell the brand new unit themselves. I just want to read that again for a second.
I think
when
what
he
it
tried
was,
to find a buyer to take over the Canadian
he
deal,
found an assignment purchaser, or someone to purchase the assignment, but the developer refused that assignment.
Okay, so very important. I mean, why don't you go first? Go, Luke. Like, what's your thoughts on all this, man?
So there's a number of different directions we can take this question and this article in particular, because, you know, in 2023 and especially now, a big thing nowadays are assignments, because a lot of people can't close with the high interest rates that we've been seeing. Now, legit, within the last 24 hours, I've had 2 people, both realtors, both investors that bought property. So these guys are people that know the industry, know the game of real estate, because they're both realtors, and they bought pre-construction properties 2 years ago, 3 years ago, have to close now within the next 8 to 12 months. Both of them lost their deposits. Not because the builder did anything, it's because they overpaid. Now, people then become afraid. Well, I don't want to buy pre-construction because people are losing deposits. You know, they're closing on it in 3 years later, and it's $200,000 less than what they paid for it. That's not the case. What I do is, when I see scenarios like this, is I like to analyze what exactly caused them to lose the $200,000, $300,000 on this investment. A common thing that I found from these realtors and from these investors is that they're overpaying on townhouses. They saw their friend back in 2020 buy a $500,000 4-bedroom, 3-bedroom townhouse in Waterloo, Guelph, wherever it may be, and doubled up within 2 years because COVID had that hot market that we saw. And then they thought they can double up $1 million to $2 million. Now, in some parts of the GTA, you could have doubled from 1 to 2 million. Brampton, Georgetown, Caledonia, Caledon. Some of those pockets during the hot times, you would have seen a double up.
Yeah.
But that was all speculation. There's there's a philosophical philosophy behind it, which is what comes up must come down. It's the same thing. Whatever goes up quick will come down quick. And that's what these guys tried to time by getting into these properties. So my advice for people that are afraid of pre-sales because of, you know, it being speculation or appraisals coming in less than what they paid for it, is you have to do your due diligence on these projects to make sure you're not buying into hype. Because these people that are defaulting, even this article, it looks like it was a townhouse. These people were trying to double up $1 million townhouse to $2 million. That's just not how it works. Our investors buy conservative, consistent, predictable and assets like condos that we know are in areas that are appreciating. So that's what makes our type of strategies predictable and reliable, because we've done our due diligence. These people, from the looks of it, tried to catch a falling knife.
And you said something actually that's pretty interesting, and it made me think about strategies of investing, is that the difference of construction time for townhomes compared to high-rise developments, a difference of 2 to 3 years in an average case, which means that potentially, you know, if the investor wants to do something, one, that's a little bit lower in purchase price, so less capital in, but also to hedge against some of these market conditions that we experience in every market, is find something with a longer construction timeline, a longer timeline for it to get to a point where you want it to go to. And that could be in regards to value, that can be in regards to an area being a little bit different or better, that can be in regards to your financing plan getting in place. Because this specific purchaser, you know, they had to rely on the funds from the home in New Delhi to actually go and close on the property. We can even talk about, you know, screening potential investors or purchasers to see if it's right for them. But regardless of that, if this was a 4-year or a 5-year construction compared to a 1.5 to 2 years, this problem might have not even been there.
Well, and going back to what Luca was talking about, the fact that majority of them are townhomes, not to say that there isn't people who are walking away from condo purchases, meaning high rise as well, but with the turnaround time on a townhome, you're only looking at approximately 18 months on really the high end, right? Like sometimes you buy a townhome and like in pre-sale, but it's going to be built in a year. Right? Where, to your point as well, Tyler, like if you look at something that's going to be stretched out longer, which when you're looking at high rises, even on paper, when you're selling when you're purchasing it on the agreement of purchase and sale, the timeline is nothing less than 3 years. It's probably closer to 4 years on paper, which in real life, after doing this now with 2,000 units in the past decade, it's probably closer to 5 years, right? So you really get that much more time for the appreciation to happen. Not to say that you're only banking on the appreciation, but it's a major part of the return on your investment when you're investing into a pre-sale. But with the townhomes and the semi-detached low-rise, which includes townhomes, semi-detached, and detached homes, the turnaround time is too quick, in my opinion, right? It's why we've probably only done like a handful in 20 years that I've been here with REC and doing real estate. We've only done like 5 or 6 in terms of low rise, and that is not from an investor's perspective. It really is from, off the top of my head, I can think of one that was from an investor's perspective. We won't mention names, but I know you know who it is. It was done in Caledon. But even that person was kind of thinking that they might move in, and so we were like, okay, if you're gonna live in this investment, look, you're probably gonna be there for a minimum 7 to 10 years, sometimes even longer. But in a 7 to 10 year window, you will see the values actually double. Here in the GTA, you gotta look at your local micro market, but anybody can call me out on this one. Like I'm asking for it. In the GTA, every decade, on average, values have doubled. So we have the facts. It's not just hearsay bullshit that 3 brokers are talking about right now today. The facts are that every decade, values have doubled. In fact, while you guys are talking about this, I'm going to kind of bring it up, and I'm going to send it to my boy here, Clyde, just so people... values in the GTA.
Do you think that
you keep going?
That specific asset class being low-rise development, those townhomes, semis, and detached, do you feel like they're priced for end users compared to investors?
I think they're definitely not priced for investors, because when you run the cash flow analysis on them, the numbers don't make sense. And one thing to even add to all of that is that the people that are defaulting on these contracts, they typically bought them from builders, from what I've seen, that don't have as big of a track record as other builders. I don't know what it is, because typically the price points are not too far off in terms of price per square foot in the market that they're selling in. But legitimately, I just see a lot of these newer up-and-coming builders with more defaults. I don't see big names defaulting as much as I see the newer names. So
when I'm having the real estate action plan calls with our insiders, because there is a percentage that do want to explore the option of assigning, and I go through the options and what's right and what's not. It's usually never because the value of that pre-construction condo, I haven't seen it yet, that the value of that pre-construction condo has been under what the appraised value should be currently in the market.
Right.
So now we have to unpack what is the challenges, right?
Completely.
And the biggest challenge that I'm seeing now, because of the interest rates as well as the the stress test, the rate that we have to get approved at, is financing.
Yeah.
It's not the same when the investor purchased it. Even we worked the numbers at like a 4%.
Right.
We're over that.
We're over that. We're well over that.
Clyde, I just sent it to you, buddy. If you can bring it up. Did you get it, brother? Yep. Okay, perfect. Bring up this chart, and just for easy math, I'll use 2000 to 2020, so the last 2 decades. Okay. Average price, let me just make sure here. Let's just take a detached. You guys will see the line there. It's a burgundy-ish line. And you have it up. Great job. Okay. We were looking at call it about 250,000. You know what? For argument's sake, let's call it 300,000. Let me just make sure. Let's see if below here on my numbers I can actually see it. Right now, the average price sits at $1.3 million.
In the GTA.
For a detached home. Okay? At $300,000 back in 2000, doubling that would be at $600,000 in a decade in 2010. Doubling that again is $1.2 million.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the facts now. So everybody can say, no, it's based on appreciation and, you might be speculating. Yes, you might be speculating if it's from a short-term perspective.
Right.
I can't tell you what the fuck's going to happen in a year, 2 years, or 3 years. I can maybe even tell you 5 years, but I probably wouldn't. Because in 5 years, I'll just cut the doubling in the decade, right?
Yeah.
We'll go up by 50%.
Yeah.
But I'll always be able to tell you what's going to happen in 10 years. In fact, even in the last 5 years, we saw the doubling happening from 2018 to 2021. It doubled.
Which is
Just in a 5-year mark. But even then, we were saying, whoa, this is way too much, way too fast. What happened? Prices came down.
Exactly.
Because it always levels out at around doubling. Now, a lot of you are thinking, what are you trying to say here, Jazz? Are you telling me that in 2030, we're going to be looking at 2.4 million? The answer is yes. That's going to be the average price of a GTA detached home in 2030 is going to be about $2.4 million, because if I took this graph back even another couple of decades, you would have seen the same thing. It goes up, it comes down, and it goes back up, and it goes back down, and that just goes on in perpetuity. However, when you look at it from that 10-year window is when you're going to get your doubling of values.
Right.
Does that make sense, boys?
And then the compounding growth, like year 7, year 8, year 9, is real.
Well, yeah, and then when you really look at the equity that you build out, that's something else,
It's
right?
different,
Where
yeah.
like the mortgage actually gets paid down, but I really think where the wealth gets created is when you have someone else pay down the mortgage.
Yeah.
See, I also believe that owning your principal residence is not necessarily an investment from an asset perspective, because there's a liability component to owning your own home. Meaning, like, I own my own home, but I gotta pay certain things from a maintenance perspective. I gotta pay the property tax. I gotta pay the mortgage payment. I gotta pay the interest on the mortgage payment. But when on my income properties, my tenant pays all that stuff. Now, there might be a year where over the year I had to put in some money, and people are, well, like, that's not a good investment. You have to put money in there. Well, okay, I can understand what you're saying, but let's do some math. There is a property this year that I'm going to end up putting in $10,000 at the end of the year. Okay, sorry, time of this recording, January, right? Whatever we are today, 11th, 12th. 2023, I put in, call it about 10 grand. Okay, that property still went up in value. Not by much, by like 1%, because the micro market that it's in downtown Toronto for that specific kind of condo with parking and locker and stuff, hence why looking at micro markets is so important. But I actually made equity. I built up equity overall in my portfolio, but who cares? I had to put in $10,000, but for the year, I own an asset that's $750 grand. So I own an asset of $750,000 that I had to put in $10,000 in 1 year. To me, it's not a question of should I do it. It's how many times can I do it, based on if I can get financing on it. So this whole tangent,
and you can stomach the 10,000.
Say that again, brother.
And you can stomach the expenses.
Exactly. I can stomach the 10,000 for a couple of reasons, and we can always talk about that, because I don't have other major expenses from a lifestyle perspective.
And
like,
you're rich, right? You're rich.
I've been rich way before I had money, brother. Like,
Jeez.
I've been rich way.
That's a philosophical quote right there.
Yeah, like way before I had money. I got people like you guys. I got my family. I got all the mistakes I've made, all the failures. To me, that is what has given me richness. When you talk about wealth from a monetary perspective, I really built that with other people paying for my properties.
You just tied on.
I just
tied
came
on full circle.
Full circle, right?
Yeah.
Like where my principal residence didn't really do that for me as much as the fact that when other people were paying for it. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't consider getting into a principal residence. I think you have to figure that out for yourself, right? Like, if you're somebody who really likes the sense of ownership, I understand why you might want to buy a property and own it yourself. There is also something to when you get your first principal residence, it gets your feet wet with building that equity. Because you're living somewhere, you need to live somewhere, Yeah, I get why people want to own that property. thoughts? Anything to add there, or we can move to another story?
I rent my primary residence and I invest in real estate. So
Say that again, Tai Tai.
I rent my primary residence, like where I live, I rent, and I
Wife,
buy
2 girls, 2 kids,
3 dogs, a farm,
I can't
a farm.
A farm.
Yeah,
3
yeah. We're gonna be installing the aquarium soon.
There you go. There you go.
No, you're not. Are you serious? Don't go that crazy. You rent where you live.
Where I live, and then I invest in real estate.
Okay, so
yeah.
Let's get into this for a second. Tell me the stories at home with Cass. Like,
Well,
Cass
I
being
think
wife.
I think the circumstances are a little bit different. I'm a little bit younger. You know, as a young Canadian.
How old are you?
I'm 31.
Okay, go.
And as a young Canadian, it is, and I hope I'm still young, but as a young Canadian, you know, the market that I want to be in and I want to live in is Toronto. And with 2 kids and 27 dogs and a wife, that's hard to find, right? I'm in the 1.4, $1.5 million purchase price kind of range. And right now, that's not right for
especially
me.
because the location that you're in.
And the location that I'm in. And you know how privileged I am that I'm 5 minutes away from our office. I can see the girls. Just a lifestyle I want to keep here. I want to be here. So what did I do is, you know, I found something that I can qualify for. And I just drove until I qualified. I knew what my financing permitted me to get purchase price wise.
Yep.
I just drove until I qualified in those locations.
So when did you buy that property?
In 2000, so I own a 3-bedroom condo, and I purchased that in 2021.
Okay, and you said a word of driving until you qualify.
Yeah, correct.
We usually use that for people who are going to live in the property, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
When you're an investor, like you weren't able to purchase a property from a financing perspective based on also your down payment in the city of Toronto or even the greater Toronto area.
Approval and
okay, so
approval
how
and down
far
payment.
for our out of province, out of country listeners? How far of a drive is it to London?
Let's
Ontario?
call it 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. Where some people would be like, "Holy shit, that's like not your backyard anymore."
Yeah, correct.
Okay. You bought a 3-bedroom condo 2021.
Correct.
And for how much?
$291,000.
$291,000. How much did you put down?
I put down 20%. So
Okay.
was that
So $300,000. You put down
$60,000
$60,000
around the closing costs. Let's call it
with closing costs and everything. About
60.
$60K. Okay, because you got away from some of the taxes that are
double land
municipal
transfer
and
tax.
like Toronto land transfer tax and stuff. You rent it out currently for how much right now?
$22.90.
$22.90 right now, but you were renting it out back in 2021. $1,900
Yeah.
because the tenants left.
I was able to raise the rents.
Raise the rents.
Yeah.
But that was built before November 2018,
Oh,
right?
it's a condo built in the 80s. So
It's
yeah.
built in the 80s.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have been able to increase the rent on the current tenant, but because they left, then you can
Correct.
rent it out to whatever you wanted to.
Right.
So $2,200 right now.
Yeah, almost 23. Call it.
Okay, so your mortgage that you originally picked up was about $230 because you bought it for $290, you
around.
put $60,000,
Yep.
$230,000.
Sure.
What's your mortgage set at now? 3 years later.
So it's a 2.5 years. I bought October of 2021. So right now the mortgage balance is sitting at like 221. I think.
221 right now.
Something around that. Just
Off the top of your head, what do you think you might be able to sell that for?
We were exploring the options of potentially selling it.
Because you have partners with you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that one was we were looking. Top of the market was around 450 is what it was worth.
Okay.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Which is the whole conversation we had before, which is that, like, in what right do I have to see these crazy amount of growth? Like, it's the lower cost of entry as well.
Yep.
But right now, let's call it about $399.
So can we just call it 400? 400K.
So
you
you're
could probably
making
sell it
about
for 400K. So let's just take your mortgage. What did you think it's at now?
220.
220,000. So that is let's just not. I want to give people some real numbers here. Okay, so we can sell it for $3, and you're calling it 220.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So you'll come out of that with $180,000. Just to make this real, let's just take 5% on your 400,000 though, in terms of real estate sales, even though that you're a real estate broker, but not everyone is, right? So the 5 on the 400 is 20,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're at really 380,000 minus your 220. of your mortgage. That's $160,000. You put in $60,000. Okay, so we divide that into your $160,000. You got a return of 37.5%.
I just drove until I qualified.
Okay, and how much management have you done on that property yourself, Tai?
So it's the reason why we chose a condo. Okay. Honestly, it's because it is such a low management, day-to-day operation-wise for as an asset.
Yeah.
I've had to go a little bit because of the tenant turnover.
Yep.
We've had 3 tenant turnovers in 2 years.
Yep.
But other than that, I had a water damage in the condo. One of the bathrooms, the ceiling, it ended up like rupturing.
Yeah.
And I got a call from the tenant Sunday morning at 8 a.m. And for everyone watching us live or watching the recording, if you ever get a call from a tenant Sunday morning at 7 o'clock, 8 a.m., it's usually not because they're checking in to see how you're doing, ever. Like that, yeah. It's so I answered the call. I was with the girls at the time, my daughters, and she called me and she's just like, "Hey Tyler, we heard a loud bang, and then now there's water dripping from the ceiling." And I was just like, okay, tenant, can you please hang up the call and just video call me really quickly? Let me see what's going on. I just see this huge bubble in the ceiling, huge one. Oh man! And it was caused obviously from the upstairs washroom, the unit owner's washroom, and I didn't drive to the condo. Okay. I didn't commute there. All I did.
Well, you can't fix the friggin' toilet yourself anyway.
Yeah,
so
I'm not very. Yeah,
not to call you out, but
it's also not even my unit that caused it. But,
right.
I wouldn't trust myself doing that anyways.
Yeah.
So I just used our concierge division. I called 3 plumbers. I got one to go in just to take a look. We found out obviously from what I thought they opened up the ceiling, that it was caused from the upstairs unit owner. He then went upstairs. Fixed the problem, and then everything else was handled through the buildings management company, and I didn't have to go. I've had to go like 3 times maybe in the 2.5 years just to show the units.
Okay, so you said 2.5 years. That's an approximate 19% return per year, and it's only on the 2 years. If you hold on to it even a little bit longer now, call it to that 5-year mark, you're actually going to see a return of anywhere from about 27% to 30% year over year. And the reason being because the values are still going to increase, but the mortgage is going to come down even more. But even if you wanted to flip it right now, you got a 19% approximately return year over year for putting down $60,000. Now, some people are like, well, I don't have 60 G's. I get that. Yeah. But is there a possible way that you might be able to get 3 friends with $20,000 each? But let me even take it a little bit further, because that condo now is no longer $290,000. It's $400K. But let's look at $400K and 20% down on the $400K, which is $80,000 plus your closing costs. Let's call it $90,000 that an investor would need to get and essentially raise as a down payment. You might not have $90,000, but you might have 30, and you might have 2 friends or 2 family members that have another $30,000 each, and you do this together. Yeah. And then you go to sleep, you chill, you wait till you get a call that says something's wrong with the fucking plumbing upstairs. You get that fixed, because renting out properties is not necessarily just from a real estate perspective. I want you to look at it. I want you to look at it like a business, meaning that if a customer walked into your store, you wouldn't tell them to F off. You'd say, how can I help you today? It's the exact same thing you want to do with the tenants. More landlords need to look at this from a business perspective and offering customer service, because then the tenants stay longer. Sometimes you want them to, and sometimes I get why you don't want them to. But at the end of the day, they take care of your stuff, and they're handing you minimum 19 cents on every dollar that you put in every single year. Treat them nice.
They're handing you the potential to build wealth.
Exactly. Like, treat them kindly, right? Yep. And so I think more investors, as we were talking about in tenants earlier about the whole cash for keys and stuff, but from the landlord's perspective, sometimes your properties get treated bad because you're treating people bad. And karma has a funny way of working things out, right? And so if you want to be a better you want better tenants, be a better landlord, right? Answer those calls, send people, get things fixed. And so I'm glad that you went into the story there. Okay, let's go to another story here. Let's shift it if you guys don't mind. I want to talk a little bit about, is it really time to take the plunge? Because I know I have a lot of people in my community. Page 35, guys, the last one there on table of contents. Is it really the time? 6 things to consider before going from employee to entrepreneur, which you know a lot of us at this table have done, but I know a lot of my viewers and listeners are thinking like, you know, is this something that I might want to consider, right? And I think it's very important to understand what you're getting yourself into. And some of the things they talk about here is that the grass is not always greener on the other side. I'm a true believer of that the grass is generally greener where you water it. And so take care of the situation that you're in right now, and you'll probably be able to reap the rewards more. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Have a clear business idea and plan. Consider a trial run before taking the leap. Know your financial runway, huge. Seek opportunities that leverage your existing skills and networks. And number 6, loneliness and isolation can be real risks. Luke, I'll go to you first, buddy. What's your thoughts? Like, what are some things, you know, based on this article, based on this thought process here, and just your experience with taking the leap from employee to entrepreneur?
If you have a day job, that means you have 261 working days in a year. That leaves you with 104 days of the year where you're on vacation, you're on holidays, you have weekends. So my advice for people that are potentially thinking of leaving their day job and starting their own business is you already have 104 days available to you for you to work on something on the side. That can potentially double the income that you're already making. Mm-hmm. Now then the question is, do you have the appetite to then take that amount of work on? Because if you have 261 days you're working at your day job and 104 days working on your own business, that means you're working 7 days a week. But guess what, as a business owner, you're working 7 days a week. You don't think I call Jazz on a Sunday morning when he's hanging out with his kids? Even I call Tyler. And Tyler, this is his day job. He's not the owner of RBC. Mm-hmm. Jazz is more compelled to answer my phone calls on a weekend, but Tyler will still pick up my phone calls. Are you prepared to work that many hours? Are you prepared to work 7 days a week? If the answer is no, then maybe dabble with this first before going full-time into it. Because I'll tell you what it is, and I think even our Vice President Laura, she mentioned it. Having a business isn't what it seems like from the outside. Once you're in it, it's a completely different beast. So my advice would be to dabble with the 104 days you already have as someone with a day job. See if you can take on that kind of work. And if you can, then why not? I think there's more opportunities there if you have the stomach for it.
Tyler, thoughts? Like you're going through some of this yourself.
Yeah, I'm going through some of this myself, right?
So what's your thoughts?
Personally, who is the type of person that is considering this, and I'm trying to grasp that myself as well. I think it's somebody like, you know, kind of somebody who wants to see personal growth and wants to go out and reach and grab it. And you know, the few points that I've been, you know, kind of wrestling with myself is, one, you need to have confidence to go out and get it. Mm-hmm. And to you know, show yourself as vulnerable. And you know, that's something that everyone has to get over, or has to try to get over. To be successful, I believe you have to be able to be true to yourself and to the people you're speaking with. I think you also shouldn't try too many things as well. Like if you're gonna do one side hustle, do one. And that's the advice that you've been giving me, as well as other people. You know, you have 104 days, is that what you said?
104 days.
104 days if you're still fully employed. What do you want to fill those 104 days with?
Exactly.
You know, what do you find enjoyment? And not all of it has to be enjoyment. Like, I'm sure I love doing prospecting calls personally because I've wired my brain to enjoy it. But I can see why people don't like prospecting and doing those outbound calls. But I don't think you're ever going to have to, you're never going to eliminate prospecting in a business, like a sales business. But at least, like, what is it that you're talking about? What is it that you're trying to build? Enjoy that. Enjoy the, you know, enjoy those points.
Yeah, look, I mean, for me, I think it's very important. The number one point the first point I apologize that these guys spoke about in this article, and who was this, by the way, just so I know who I'm quoting. Do we have that here anywhere, Clyde? I think it was Entrepreneur.
Yeah, I was trying to look for it.
Excuse me, Entrepreneur Magazine. But was it? No, I don't see that. Okay. The grass is not always greener on the other side. I think that's very, very important. I think that I like where they put this as number one, because I always say to people, don't do it because you think it's cool, because your friends are doing it, or you see everybody on social media calling them, like everyone's an entrepreneur right now. Everybody wants to put that on their profile because it's kind of the cool thing to do. Know that when you go into business for yourself, you are going to be doing it by yourself. Even though that you have a team, it all comes down to you. Because your team, if you're the entrepreneur and you're the leader, if you're not doing this with partners and you're doing this on your own in terms of it's going to be your business 100%, like a sole proprietorship, yes, I understand that you're going to have staff. However, that staff you might think works for you, but in today's day and age, you better start being prepared to wear the hat that you work for them. Because they have so many options. They're thinking about doing their own side hustles. They're thinking about wanting to start their own business. They don't necessarily go to sleep thinking about your vision and your dream. And so know that it definitely gets lonely. This is not to scare people away from it, but it takes me to one of their second points, which is considering taking, like, to Luke's point, you got all these extra hours. Why don't just get your feet wet a little bit? Like, you don't have to jump all in all aspects of your life. I think there's certain aspects of your life that you should jump all in. You want to start dating? Go all in. Like, give that woman, that man, all of you. Because then you could see what that's going to grow to be, okay? You have a job that you're doing, give that your all, because you just don't know what's going to come out of it by doing that. However, when you're thinking about starting a business, there's nothing wrong with putting an hour a day, which doesn't sound like a lot, but do some math. If you just do an hour a day, that's 7 hours in a week. That's 28 hours in a month. You got a full day now at the end of the month, right? And the best thing about it is, you might say, if you're watching or listening right now, like, okay, well, 28 hours is not a lot, but it is actually 28 hours focused on something. That's a lot of time, but the best thing being that you're still getting paid from your full-time job. So the stress from a financial perspective doesn't take over you. Which brings me to their number fourth point, which I think is very important, because I've been coaching and training real estate agents for 20 years now, and I can tell you that the biggest mistake that people get into in our industry when they want to become a real estate agent, and you're an entrepreneur when you become a real estate agent, or at least you should be thinking of yourself as a business person, is they don't have enough financial runway. Meaning they got into this like, okay, I'm going to get my license and I'm going to get that Mercedes and that BMW and wear the nice suits and have the Prada bags like I see everybody else on Selling Sunset and $1 million shows, and even just my friends in the city that I know that are real estate agents. I'm going to have that as well. But what they don't realize is they didn't put away any money. And a word that I think more people need to focus on going into 2024, very important, savings.
Yeah.
You need to put away a slush fund, not only for your business, which is exactly what you need to do as a business owner, because you got to pay the staff, you got to keep the lights on, but for your life. Here's the goal that I have in my life. I want everybody to hear it, because then you don't need to do it like me. It might not be right for everyone, but it's right for me. The target I always set for myself every single year from a slush fund perspective, not for my business, but for my life, is I need to have 1 year's expenses of everything. What do I mean? So I take my mortgage payment, I take my car payment, I take my payments for my kids and like in terms of like all the extracurricular activities and everything they do. I take my staff payments. I lump it all in. Why? Because I tell myself every single year, if for some reason fucking bombs over Toronto happen and there's no money to be made, can I just have that runway for a year? Knock on wood, if something happens to me from a health perspective, can everything still stay afloat? Number one being my family. Are they going to eat? Do they have the shelter over their heads? Are they going to be able to go to school? Yes, all that stuff is taken care of. Number two being everybody in my business. Is Clyde still going to get his paycheck every 2 weeks? Is Alex still going to get her paycheck every 2 weeks? Is everyone going to eat? I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet at the full year. Right now, I'm probably sitting around 7 months. So I got some work to do. Now, knock on wood, the good thing is we don't have any bombs over Toronto right now. So the nice thing is every year I'm also earning revenue, right? But I'm making sure that I have that runway because I don't want to make dumb decisions. Meaning I don't want to rush the process. Our mantra for 2024, big decal in our office says, trust the process. I want to actually not only drink my own Kool-Aid, but execute on on what I'm saying, is that now I can actually trust the process from the perspective of I don't have to make stupid decisions to do things quickly. I'm not going to push a client to buy a piece of real estate when they shouldn't because I need to feed my kids and pay the staff. I'm not going to tell one of my real estate agents who shouldn't be actually even in our coaching program because they're not right for it, because they don't have their own financial runway, funny enough. So I'm not going to push that agent to get coaching from Fitigu Academy for it because I need to pay the bills. I'm okay. So now I could really have the mindset from a business owner, which is sort and don't convince, right? Another acronym right behind Tyler's head, Luke's head, I apologize, is BRNT, build relationships, not transactions. BRNT, build relationships, not transactions. And you can only really do that, in my opinion, why I've effectively been doing that, is because I don't need to be transactional. You're only really transactional when you need the dollar. You can build relationships which will actually have way more transactions come your way than you've ever dreamt of, because when you're building relationships, people actually want to work with you. Thoughts, guys?
I agree. I was thinking about something else. So I have a question for you guys in regards to, because you are both entrepreneurs, in regards to kind of overall business planning. How do you approach bringing something new into your business? Like either a new outreach program, a new service. How do you approach that? Like when do you find out that it's the right time to do that?
I'll let you go, Luker.
So one thing that works best for me in my business is that, for one, I never touch anything that's not broken. So if I find that something's working well, I'm going to double down on what's working well and take it from there. In terms of implementing new things into the business, I only do it if I genuinely see that there's a hole that needs to be fixed, right? And
if you're solving a problem.
Exactly. So I do it if there's a problem that needs to be solved. So if there's a problem that needs to be solved, I then have to dissect that problem. What's the source of the problem? What's the roots of it? And then what's causing it? How can we cause it? How can we prevent it from happening again in the future? And after answering all of these questions, it's going to tell me exactly what the problem is, how to prevent it from happening, and how to roll it out effectively. I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but it's as simple as just dissecting what it is.
And then where are you finding these problems?
Wherever there's something that's bleeding. Now that's typically money. So if there's money that's bleeding and there's not money that's coming back from one particular source, I then have to look at what that is.
So it's what Alex Ramosi says: wealth, relationship, main problems, right? Wealth, relationship. What's the third one?
I'm not sure.
Wealth, relationship, and lifestyle, or perceived
sure.
appearance. Those are the three main problems, right?
That people have? Oh, status.
Yeah, status.
Status. Wealth, relationships, and status.
So that's where you address it. Which is the wealth problem, is that you are always trying to fix.
Yeah, I mean,
Or the
one thing to know, like especially as a business owner, and I know you're kind of dabbling with your own stuff as well.
Yeah.
at the end of the day, to answer your question about rolling out new things and launching new products and fixing problems, it always comes from the top. So you as a business owner, you're responsible and you're ultimately the root of all those things. Then you have to look, what did I miss? This failed. What did I miss that didn't work? What did I overlook? What did I not notice? What did I not do my due diligence on? And then when you piece all these things together, you get to actually acquire new skills and new habits on when you do launch something new. You already know what to if you predetermined what to look out for.
So you talked about something that we have in our culture here, with the three of us, which is it's always my fault.
It is.
Which means that it's actually a very, very intelligent thing that you've ingrained in me anyways, Jazz, which is that if you go away with whose fault it is, who caused the problem, and then just look at, okay, it's my fault, I created the problem, now how do we fix it? You're taking a lot of bandwidth away from things that don't matter. Which is great. And then what do you do documentation-wise? Like in regards to, let's say, for example, you do a launch program type of service or something you're trying to deliver to a population or community. How do you document the process there of, how to launch it, how do I deliver it, how do I dedicate my time to it? Like how does that work in regards to kind of brainstorming or documentation of brainstorming?
Yeah, so what I typically do is that I find that the lessons that need to be learned the most, they're typically something that you're going to remember naturally because of how bad the pain was going through that mistake. So I personally don't even document things apart from doing my own journaling, but I don't even review those even after I write it. It's just more for therapeutic purposes. But with that being said, whenever I launch something new or if I'm going to implement something that's new and I know it's an improved version of something that might have failed in the past, I just know just based on experience what not to do and what to do. So there's no documentation process for me. It's just doing, failing, and doing, and failing, and doing.
And just getting a little bit better every time.
That's it.
I love it. I love that answer.
That's it.
It's the whole thing, right? And I know a lot of people talk about it in terms of it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. It really is that, right? Because when you realize to what you just said, Tyler, rephrasing what Luke said, it really is understanding that at times things are going to work and times things are not going to work. But if your why is strong enough, you're going to keep going. This business stuff is not easy. Like it's just not, because there's so many moving parts, external and internal, right? And like a hero in any movie that you've ever watched, there is always an external battle that hero is facing. And so generally, using Batman as the example, he's facing Joker or the Penguin, but there's also an internal battle that hero is facing. And in Batman's case, it's, does he want to even continue doing this? Does he want to stay as Bruce Wayne? And as an entrepreneur, you're going to have that same as well. You're going to have the self-doubt. Can I do this? Should I be doing this? Oh my God, I look like an idiot. I can't be vulnerable. And I'm not pointing at you, Tyler.
No,
you just did a video on it, which I think was just fantastic.
Which was actually harder to film than everything else.
Well, obviously, you're opening yourself up.
But it was just funny just going through it because I was like, this is no problem.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then when you press play, I'll record. Sorry.
I'm usually like a 1-2 take type of person. I don't care. Just put it up send it. But it took a few takes. I was like, why am I?
Which video was this?
I did one yesterday about why I am in real estate and what I've been able to do over the past decade.
And the challenges you've had.
And one of my main challenges is the vulnerability of feeling like I don't deserve to go and speak to my community about building wealth through investing because of myself and what I haven't experienced personally, through the years of not owning real estate and not feeling like I deserve to talk about it.
Yeah,
but those are vulnerabilities that we overcome. The Batman thing's so interesting that you said that, because you can actually boil it down to there are probably days where he doesn't want to get up and do, fight crime in this, this fictional world. But one thing never changes is his core values or his principles. Like, for example, Batman doesn't kill. There is his core principle is that he will fight crime and he brings it to a limit, but he knows where the limit is, which is that he doesn't kill people.
Wow.
And I would imagine there's some philosophical.
Well, Batman's always been my favorite. just on
He's
a
mine
side
as
note,
well.
because he's the one that doesn't have like an actual superpower.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everyone had, like Iron Man can fly, and all these guys, you know, like Wolverine. I love them all. Wolverine heals himself, and Hulk is, you know, the Green Monster, and all this. Where Batman doesn't really have that.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I mean? Yes, he has gadgets that help him fly. I
Yeah.
get that, but he himself doesn't really have that superpower.
He has
but
plans. He's
Pardon?
just always planning.
Yes,
He's always planning.
Yeah. Well, he's
preparing.
He's probably the most technological advanced superhero.
He's probably not ready for it.
No, he's not ready.
You
for
know,
that.
I was just thinking that.
He's not ready for
He
it.
didn't watch the podcast.
No, Bruce Wayne, please don't watch us. He's aiming for sure.
Best Batman ever.
I like Michael Keaton.
Wow.
I like Michael Keaton.
I like the Batman. I think you went there.
I love Michael Keaton's Batmans.
Yeah.
I think that the actual movies itself is the perfect feeling of how I think Batman is. It's comical. The colors are very vibrant in the movies as well. He's just a good Batman.
Could you even pick one?
Don't. I haven't watched any of those movies.
Okay, cool.
What about yours?
I'm gonna say Adam West. Believe it or not.
Oh, nice.
Because I grew up on that Batman.
Do you remember watching that in Niagara? We were watching. We were at the Keys Bar Summit,
Yeah.
and one of the Batmans came on.
And me and you
after
also
the
watched
summit.
it.
We literally sat there and watched the Batman episode, saying how funny it was.
Okay, well, I don't remember, but I'm sure that if I did, because I know you're such a comic guy.
We literally sat there and watched the.
And
Batman.
I'm not a big comic guy, believe it or not. It's just Batman
Yeah.
that
Oh,
I've
it's so
always
good.
watched. But I would be lying to say if you know I didn't give Christian Bale his kudos. I know people don't like him as Batman as much. I think it's
Really?
because sometimes
Yeah?
I hear that. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I
but
loved it.
Well, for me, Dark Knight is not the only, like, it's not only the best Batman movie. For me, it's my top 3 probably
Yeah.
in movies.
Yeah.
Movies in general.
Yeah,
It's a great trilogy.
Top 5. So top 5 for sure. It's just like, you know, Scarface and Goodfellas and Godfather.
Godfather.
I think are like my top 3. I would
The
probably
mafia movies.
Yeah, well, I'm Al Pacino and Robert De Niro all day long, but that Dark Knight 100% is in the top 5. I've seen it 72 times.
It's hard to do a good trilogy, and that is a good
Yeah.
trilogy, because usually what happens by the third movie, it kind of gets a little
Yep.
bit stale, right? And you can see that in The Godfather. You can see it in The Lord of the Rings, really.
I'll go to you for one last thing,
Yeah.
because this is going to be obviously airing right away. $20 on who wins on Sunday. And we have not spoken
Oh,
about this.
okay. So
Because we're like,
So Green Bay or
well,
Dallas.
you have no choice. You have to take who the fuck you have to take Green Bay. That's your team.
Okay, so so Green Bay's looking really good over the last few weeks.
Okay.
Their offense is.
I'm just asking if you want to put $20 on it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, good. So we
100%.
heard
Let's
it
go.
here.
It's $20.
We heard it here live on the Jazz Takhar podcast.
But what do you actually think is going to happen?
Look, there's a movie. We're talking about movies. Any Given Sunday by Al Pacino, Jamie Foxx. Anything can happen on any given Sunday on football. But even more so during playoffs. That ball, the way that it's shaped, the way that it bounces.
If it's inflated enough.
My European
If it's inflated
friend.
enough.
We are talking about American football, okay? Because you're like, what are you talking about? The football's round, Jazz. Anyways, I don't believe that the Packers can stay up in terms of the offense.
Second
of
youngest
Dallas
offense in the-
in home,
second-
at home.
Yeah.
So on average, we beat people by about 35 points at home for the
Yeah.
last 16 games at home on average.
Damn.
Can the guy Jordan Love your quarterback have like an out of body first playoff game ever kind of experience? Sure, it happens all the time. I just don't.
Especially Green Bay quarterbacks, it does happen. Where,
For Dallas, against Dallas.
Yeah.
If this was in Green Bay, I would not have the confidence that I have.
Especially the.
I'm not.
It
I'm
always
not,
favors Green Bay because of the temperature too. Because you're going to get a lot of warmer climate teams
Coming
like
to Green Bay.
Dallas coming
Yeah.
to Green Bay.
But none of this is a factor to me.
Yeah, I
because
think
Dallas is at
I
home.
think Dallas will win.
They should win.
I think it's going to be an interesting game though. The run defense in Dallas is great, right? Like
Yep.
great run defense. So defense is going to get shut or running.
No. Their run defense is actually not that good, Ty. It's their pass defense for Dallas, and that's
Yeah.
where I think you guys create a problem for
Yeah.
us because you guys run.
Yeah.
And so I'm a little
Run and then
concerned
throw on the
there,
wings.
but overall I'm fine. Like I got a lot of confidence. I'm not delirious to say 100,000%. That's why I said $20 and not 100.
It's gonna be fun though.
Okay, I want to close it off really quickly. Very important if you're a real estate professional, and which means real estate agent or mortgage broker. From the academy, what we want to do, it's the same thing that I did in my real estate business. It's the same thing that I'm going to do with the academy, which is the coaching company for real estate professionals, real estate agents, and mortgage brokers. I want to reverse engineer what your biggest obstacles are. Clyde, I sent you a link. I don't know if you can get that up and running. I airdropped it to you. Either way, wherever you're watching this right now, there will be a link to a survey. It takes literally less than 13 seconds to complete. I'm not even exaggerating. It's 3 questions, I believe. It's less than 13 seconds. I looked over to Ty because he designed it.
5 seconds.
Okay? On Friday, January 19th at noon. Friday, January 19th. I'm going to go live on all YouTube and probably Twitch here as well, but Instagram for sure. We're going to be doing a draw for one person for $1,000. No strings attached. I don't need to market towards you after. I need you to answer 3 questions. There's really the one question that's the most important, because I believe it's just easier to ask the marketplace, what are your obstacles? And then I'm going to have myself and my team try to reverse engineer that. And so to make it fun, fill out the survey. We're going to pick one name and they're going to win $1,000. I didn't want to make it $20 like the bet with Ty because it's my boy, and I don't want to take more money than $20 than Tyler. I wanted to not only make it something that would be worth your time, but something that would be like, oh, okay, it's not even $100, like it's $1,000.
Can I sign up?
You definitely can sign up, but you don't win automatically. It's one winner, and we pull out the name. He's going to sign up, but I'm going to take his name out. No, I'm kidding.
Damn.
Anybody can sign up. Just click the link. Take this 13-second survey. Answer the questions. We're not marketing towards you afterwards. It is like the easiest way to possibly be the winner of the $1,000. Luker, Ty, love you guys. We got work to do. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Take care,
Actually,
guys.
we don't even do this in a couple of weeks. We'll see you next week because I'm trying to ramp up how many episodes we're doing. My goal for the year is to do a podcast every single week. So make sure you're watching live on Twitch because we're going to be giving away a lot more stuff and just having some more fun when you're watching live. But if you're listening while you're taking your dog for a walk right now on one of the podcast platforms, thank you. We appreciate it. Remember, nothing really in life is for free. If I actually want to keep doing this content, but I need your help. Share it with a friend, family member, or colleague. See you soon. All right.
Ciao, everyone.